It's been a busy week in South Africa, which included major changes to the country's cabinet by President Cyril Ramaphosa.
This evening, I'm announcing certain changes to the national executive of our country.
Welcome to this week's roundup of the best stories of the week from our reporters on the ground on Your Week in 60 Minutes with me, Olebogeng Kgosilentswe. In recent days, there have been mounting calls for President Cyril Ramaphosa to do some house cleaning in his cabinet. So, coming up in this episode, we bring you the country's cabinet reshuffle and reactions from other stakeholders. We also bring you pronouncements by Corporate Governance Minister Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma on the upcoming elections. And finally, the media industry buried one of its legends, Shona Ferguson, in a somber ceremony held in Johannesburg this Wednesday. Let's now get straight into it. President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday evening announced some major changes to his executive, a move cited as long overdue. Let's take a look.
I'm announcing certain changes.
One of the biggest changes made by President Cyril Ramaphosa during his cabinet reshuffle on Thursday evening was to place the state security functions within the presidency, which will now be headed by Mondli Gungubele and deputized by Zizi Kodwa.
The second change we are making is to do away with the Ministry of State Security and place political responsibility for the state security agency in the presidency. And this is also done by a number of other governments around the world. This is to ensure that the country's domestic and foreign intelligence services more effectively enable the President to exercise his responsibility to safeguard the security and integrity of the nation.
This is the first time Ramaphosa has made changes to his cabinet since receiving his mandate from the electorate in 2019.
In the presidency, we'll be appointing Mr. Mondli Gungubele, Communications and Digital Technologies, Ms. Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, Defense and Military Veterans, Ms. Thandi Modise, Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwana, Health, Mr. Joe Patha, Human Settlements, Ms. Mamuluku Kubai, Public Service and Administration, Ms. Ayanda Dlodlo, Small Business and Development, Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, Tourism, Ms. Lindiwe Sisulu, Water and Sanitation, Mr. Senzo Mkhulu.
The now former Defense Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, who in recent times contradicted the President on the characterization of the civil unrest seen in July, is the only former political head whose future is yet to be determined. Her husband, Charles Nqakula, who was previously an advisor of state security for the President, has also now been replaced by Dr. Sidney Mufamadi. A panel to look into what caused the unprecedented attack on the country's democracy has also now been set up.
We have acknowledged that our security services were found wanting in several respects. As part of the critical measures we are undertaking to strengthen our security services and to prevent a recurrence of these events, I'm appointing an expert panel to lead a thorough and critical review of our preparedness and the shortcomings in our response. Members of the panel are Professor Sandy Africa, who will chair this panel, Advocate Mujangu Gumbi, and Mr. Silumko Zokuba.
Former Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize, who resigned hours before the President changed his cabinet, will now be taking the Special Investigating Unit's report, which prompted his exit, on judicial review. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Zyanda Ngobo in Johannesburg.
The reshuffling has been welcomed by many who have been calling for it, while the names and lack of diversity on the new list, however, cast a different light.
I'm therefore making changes to the National Executive.
Having been pressured to shake up his cabinet for a while, President Cyril Ramaphosa finally acceded, making the bold move that he believes is necessary to improve governance. But not everyone sees things that way.
This is about shifting the chairs. Absolutely not significant.
There may have been that confusion on my side.
Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula is the only minister to be booted from cabinet. SAF2 General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi says Ayanda Dlodlo should have suffered the same fate instead of being moved to public service and administration.
Ayanda Dlodlo was in that portfolio before during the presidency of Jacob Zuma. He's returning back to it. Nothing is going to change.
The IFP shares the same sentiments.
The reshuffling of Minister Dlodlo to another department really is not fair to the people of South Africa, that a person who demonstrated incompetence, instead of being shown the door, but is being rewarded, being redeployed to another section. But in any event, this is how the ANC does things.
This is not the only appointment the IFP is against.
We have some hesitations in as far as the Minister of Finance is concerned, because we are not sure how strong will he be to stand for what it is right, as Tito Mboweni was able to do so.
Meanwhile, the ANC's alliance partner, COSATU, has described the reshuffle as simply recycling.
It's always difficult when you bring people who are part of creating the problem to say now they have a new mandate of fixing those very same problems. But we want to be positive. We are going to give them a chance, give them the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully, we will be wonderfully surprised.
Good to have you with us, and thank you very much for joining us. What do you make, firstly, of the resignation, long-time coming resignation of the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, and as far as continuity is concerned, Enoch Godongwana coming in?
Well, good evening, Thabo. We had anticipated Minister Mboweni's resignation for some time. He'd flagged it very publicly over the past 2 years. I don't think that we should be surprised about that. He has had to navigate a very difficult path for the country, not just in anticipation of the downgrades that we saw at the beginning of last year, but also much more importantly in the face of the pandemic. And he's done with his team at Treasury, I believe, a very good job, and business has been happy to work with him. And we will do the same thing with Enoch Godongwana as the Minister of Finance, as has been said. He's the chairman of the ANC ETC. He understands their policy options extremely well. He's had exposure to government before as a deputy minister. He will certainly need to provide the requisite reassurance that whatever questions arose historically have been appropriately addressed. As the chair of the DBSA, I'm sure that due diligence has been done by both the rating agencies as well as the regulators. But as has been said, he's going to have to step into not only Minister Mboweni's shoes to chart an appropriate course that's consistent with what has been laid out, but he's going to have to ensure that we add real pace to the implementation of the reconstruction and recovery program that has been much vaunted, but where we haven't seen the level of implementation that's required, particularly if we're going to be able to address the challenges that are now confronting the country, and where there's very low levels of confidence, particularly in the light of the unrest, I would say the anarchy that we've seen, particularly in KZN 3 weeks ago.
Alliance partner COSATU has expressed disappointment at what they call the recycling of the old guard that has really not proven itself in leadership. Now, what do you feel, particularly when we are speaking of the vote of confidence in young people? Did this reshuffle strike the right note?
Thank you very much, and good evening, Thabo, and the viewers. Look, we're very much disappointed as young people that our leadership really do not think that young people can help in moving the country forward, and they can assist in bringing about new ideas. So I really need to say that we are extremely, extremely angry and disappointed that young people are not seen as people that can be able to take the country forward. I mean, you look at the department that is supposedly is supposed to cater for young people's interests and needs. It is led by an old person. I mean, we're from a youth month, June. What happened in June? It is led by an old person. I think even that shows how much we are not taken serious as young people, and I don't really think that that's fair to young people. We have a lot of young people, and when I speak about young people, I do not speak about recent graduates of ANC Youth League or people who are 40, 42, who just are above 35. I mean, we're expecting to see a deputy minister, a minister in their 20s, in their early 30s, and it did not happen. We have a lot of capable young people, not only in the ANC, but across the board.
Well, thank you for staying with us as we bring you the very best of this week's top stories by our journalists on the ground. Thanks for staying with us. Now, on Friday, new ministers who were previously not members of Parliament were sworn in order to start their ministerial duties. Let's take a look.
In terms of the powers vested in me by Section 91, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996, I have decided to appoint the following persons as ministers for the portfolios indicated in the signed President's Act.
I, and then you put your name, swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
Swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
And will obey. Respect. And uphold the Constitution.
And uphold the Constitution.
And all other law of the Republic.
And all other law of the Republic.
And I undertake to hold my office.
And I undertake to hold my office.
As minister with honor and dignity.
As minister with honor and dignity.
To be a true and faithful counselor.
To be a true and faithful counselor.
Not to divulge directly or indirectly.
Not to divulge directly or indirectly.
Any secret matter entrusted to me.
Any secret matter entrusted to me.
And to perform the functions of my office.
And to perform the functions of my office
conscientiously and to the best of my ability.
Conscientiously and to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. And then give your name. Swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
Swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
And
Matume Joseph Pasha.
Swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
Swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
And will
undertake to hold my office as a deputy minister.
With honor and dignity.
With honor and dignity.
I undertake to hold my office.
And I undertake to hold my office.
As deputy minister with honor and dignity.
As deputy minister with honor and dignity.
I undertake to hold my office as deputy minister.
And I undertake to hold my office as the deputy minister.
With honor and dignity.
With honor and dignity.
To be a true and faithful counselor.
To be a true and faithful counselor.
Not to
undertake to hold my office as deputy minister.
With honor and dignity.
With honor and dignity.
To be a true and faithful counselor.
To be a true and faithful counselor.
Not to divulge directly or indirectly.
Not to divulge directly or indirectly.
Any secret matter entrusted to me.
Any secret matter entrusted to me.
And to perform the functions of my office.
and to perform the functions of my office
conscientiously and to the best of my ability.
conscientiously and to the best of my ability.
And then raise your right hand, please, and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
As we come out of that swearing-in ceremony of new ministers and their deputies, we now take a look at some of the reactions that followed.
Procurement should be utilized to transform the economy, but also to build small businesses, businesses owned by young people, businesses owned by people with disabilities and people and women. So it is important that especially the Minister of Finance prioritize the public procurement bill that we've been working on for some time, and unfortunately the previous Minister of Finance, for some reason, he did not prioritize that bill, and we had even agreed at NetLeg during the discussions around the economic recovery plan that this public procurement bill should be prioritized so that we can utilize the state resources and the state procurement because it's a huge resource. We can utilize that to support big black business, to support small business, to support the entire ecosystem so that we can grow the economy.
Well, I think he could have used this opportunity to send a clear message that we're also going to tackle, or he's going to tackle, and us as a nation are going to tackle really underperforming ministries. We've seen in energy, we've seen it in transport, we see it in the police, and yet this ineptitude, this inefficiency that just permeates some of these ministries just is allowed to continue. So those are the main issues that we are seeing. We understand there's this that is trapped in this catered deployment mindset that permeates the ruling party. We see that as well when he moves people like Ayanda Tlodlo and keeps people like Zizi Kwadwa and Mantashe on board still when there are question marks around their conduct. So if he's serious about tackling maladministration, corruption and inefficiencies, he certainly hasn't sent that message across with this latest reshuffle.
So, anything, we just need to take a step back towards 2018. I mean, Minister Mboweni had been keen, to come back after agreeing to the position of Finance Minister after the sudden departure of Nhlanhla Nene in 2018. I mean, if you take that time back, Mr. Mboweni was working in the private sector where he was obviously in touch with a lot of, the business community where he had been occupying roles such as the chairman of Goldman Sachs and also Anglo Ashanti. But also after that, South Africa was in trouble and, Minister Mboweni came into effect. Now we've got Mr. Enoch Godongwana, who is also having, quite a lot of ties with also the business sector. I mean, he is at the moment the chairman of the ruling party's Economic Transformation Subcommittee, and he is also the chairman of the Development Bank of South Africa, and he's also an influential figure in the ANC, and he is regarded as a pragmatic, individual with a pragmatic economic voice as well, and a trusted pair of hands. And I think that's also what the international community and markets want from a finance minister. We do know that he holds a master's degree in financial economics from the University of London, and also he has served as a deputy public enterprise minister in the early 2000s. And also, I think when you look at it, he is really well known by the local and also international investment community. I think he's also been really proactive in seeking to water down a lot of the populist policies that we have seen being bandied around. And over and above that, I mean, you also just look at some of the other companies that he's a non-executive director for the likes of Mondi for the past 2 years. Also, just about 2 months ago, he was also appointed as a director of the Platinum Group Metals Company. So
we've had a lot of requests from foreign investors for more information on Enoch and the background and asking questions around the pension issue. So I think that in South Africa's environment, it's critical that this is clarified. You can't have a finance minister operating effectively with this sort of corruption cloud from the past. So I would urge that there's some sort of clarity brought to bear with regards to the historical issues. It's critical when we look at what happens to South Africa's credit rating, the way we attract foreign investment, and also for the country as a whole, given the history that we've had in terms of this corruption and now the fight back against corruption. It's critical that the finance minister is seen to be certainly above that. So I would urge that that is dealt with as soon as possible, and that additional information is divulged in terms of what was the net outcome of those issues, which we don't have a huge amount of detail about right now.
I'm the first since democracy minister who, when faced with the allegation, without being pushed by anybody, I resigned. That's the first point. In order to make sure that I can deal with those issues and clear them and not taint the office. I did it. That's the first point. The second point, subsequent to that, I've dealt with those issues satisfactorily and concluded and bedded them down. That's why I've been able to be appointed by international boards, which I had to undergo scrutiny of various security exchanges. So I'm not worried about that.
We're very pleased with the current changes made by the President. We think these changes are very profound and important to an extent that they mark a new impetus on the developmental and implementation capacity of government to fulfill the hopes that the people have mandated the ANC through its manifesto to lead our country. And therefore we believe that the most priority task of this team is to focus on the economic interventions so that we are able to turn around our economy and improve the living conditions of the majority in our country.
And of the newly appointed ministers has just concluded, and one of those include the newly appointed State Security Minister, Mr. Mondli Kongobela. Congratulations, first of all. I'm sure you're up to the task. You are now going to be overseeing as well state security within the presidency. We've never had this situation before in the country. What is that going to look like?
I have not experienced it. I'm new. It will be difficult for me to claim to be having any informed ideas around it. But I'm looking forward to interact with the institution as newly established and then find my way. What to me is exciting is the honor that the President has shown to me and my ability to work, and I'm very proud of that. All I want to say is that currently as we speak, this institution, being a minister in the presidency, which I always refer to it as a pulse measure. You know the pulse in your body, when we measure it, we check the state of your body. My ambition and aspirations and commitment is to make sure that I contribute in ensuring that the presidency is a credible and a reliable pulse measure for President's leadership, that at all material times, in him leading the country, he must never be found wanting. In that context, whatever role this new arrangement is, to the extent that it drives that goal, I'll be very excited to contribute.
I mean, speaking of pulse and measuring, where we are, I think one of the issues that's top of mind that's happened recently is the civil unrest that we've seen. There was confusion around the characterization of what exactly it was, and there was seemingly issues with the politics getting involved in what actually happened. What is your approach? You may be new, but you must have some sort of a leadership style.
My approach is teamwork. But the key thing, when I say pulse, it means all the necessary infrastructure that keeps the president in touch of the entire system, including all ministries, all organs of the state. That machinery, from the point of personnel, skilled personnel, infrastructure for communication, research capacity, research expertise, and all those things, if they are together and organized and well led, we must be able to avoid some of those things. It helps the president to be in a better pedestal, to lead with confidence and credibly at all material times.
And hopefully not be caught with our pants down. Well, thank you very much. Mondli Kongobele is the newly appointed State Security, well, I beg your pardon, Minister in the Presidency, but will be overseeing State Security, which has now been moved into the Presidency. Quite frank about the fact that this is a new thing. It's never happened in the country before, and so he's looking forward then to seeing how to, sharpen the president's role as a political leader of this country.
Other stories to look forward to in this hour. The ANC joins the IEC in its bid to have the local government elections postponed to next year. South Africa is due to hold its local government elections on the 27th of October. This has, however, sparked a number of diverse views from political parties that question whether these elections would be free and fair if not postponed. The IEC has decided to adopt the Moseneke report to postpone the elections and will head to the Constitutional Court for this application.
As to whether it is the minister or the IEC that should approach the Constitutional Court, the ideal question ought to be whether the Constitutional Court may grant an order postponing the elections. However, since it is the IEC that has to form the view and has formed the view that the elections held within the time period permitted by the Constitution would not be free and fair, it is the IEC that ought to be the applicant. The IEC is obliged to cite the minister as a respondent. The minister will be free to participate in the proceedings as a respondent in any manner she wishes. The minister may abide the decision of the court or actively support the relief that the IEC will seek. The minister may even abide the decision but file an explanatory affidavit and make written and oral submissions to assist the court to come to a just outcome. It is therefore very clear that we still must go ahead to call the election and gazette the date. This will also enable the IEC to go ahead and file papers in the Constitutional Court to postpone an election that has been called. We are also aware that calling of the election and gazetting will mean the voters' roll will be sealed. The IEC will go to the Constitutional Court on an urgent basis, and hopefully in their papers that will be taken into account. If the Constitutional Court allows for the postponement, of course we will abide. So in gazetting the date, which we will do today, we are no way seeking to contradict the inquiry conclusions of the IEC contemplating actions. We are just merely fulfilling our constitutional and statutory obligations. I thank you.
We have heard from the IEC saying that it is expected to approach the Constitutional Court, asking it to, of course, push forward those elections which are expected to take place on the 27th of October. But just to give us a bit of insight, Hugo, we are now joined by the IEC CEO, Simon Mabulo. The last time we were here, you couldn't give us clarity as to which court the IEC will be approaching. It was between whether you will go to the Electoral Court or you will go to the Constitutional Court. You have now said you are approaching the Constitutional Court. Why the Con Court?
Our application raises weighty constitutional matters. There are political rights enshrined in Section 19 of the Constitution, the founding values of our Constitution, speaking about the regularity of elections, the right to life, bodily and psychological integrity, and so on. So we believe that the Constitutional Court is the opposite court to determine those issues, because the application at its core involves the balancing of significant rights in the Constitution.
Do you think that, I know that you said that you will be making that application no later than this afternoon. Do you think that you will have a very strong case taking that matter to the Constitutional Court? Because one would also say, why haven't you taken the route of going to Parliament and asking them to amend the Constitution?
Our estimation is that the option of doing a constitutional amendment via Parliament, it's impractical in the circumstances, given the time it takes to pass a legislative amendment of that weight. Two, we are not convinced that that would have been the preferred option, given that we are dealing with a short-term challenge, and we don't think we should be easy on constitutional amendment each time we have an uncomfortable situation. We believe this to be a short-term problem requiring a judicial order rather than a change to the founding law of the country.
You have said as the IEC that you will continue with your timetable. You've also said this a bit earlier on, saying that as the IEC, until a court rules otherwise, you are preparing for elections. How has this impacted, or how will it even further impact the IEC, especially looking at the financial implications of this manner?
Yes, it is a very untenable position to be in, no doubt about that. Because we are preparing on two planes, as it were. One, we're preparing as we have to for the 27th, yet at the same time, we are awaiting in great anticipation the outcome of the court application. So it requires a judicious exercise of the mind so that we do not spend fruitlessly and we don't spend wastefully. Knowing at which point to commit in terms of the contracts that we sign for result centers, the leases for voting stations, as well as the engagement of staff.
All right, thank you very much. Of course, that is Simon Mabolo. He is the CEO of the IEC there, Hugo, just talking about that application, which they will be taking to the Constitutional Court. But of course, at the same time, there is a bit of concern there when it comes to voter registration. Should those elections go ahead on the 27th of October, we know that the IEC could not have voter registration because of the peak of COVID-19. Of course, looking at that third wave, especially in the likes of Gauteng, we also know now that this seems to be the case as well going into the Western Cape. But of course, we will then hear from the Constitutional Court now that these papers will be filed today, when exactly that matter will be heard. But we know that those papers have been filed on an urgent basis.
The Commission, in response, unanimously accepts the findings of the Msuneke report. In particular, the Commission notes the rationale and central thesis of the report that community immunity through mass vaccination must be considered as a desirable step in the conduct of a safe, free and fair elections in the Republic. Insofar as the recommendation pertain, the Commission will adjust implementation to accord with current legal prescripts and financial means. Where there are substantial financial implications, National Treasury will be approached. For its part, the Commission has determined immediate causes of action given the agency of the matters canvassed in the report. The consultation will also be sought with National Treasury regarding the financial implications of the recommendations embodied in the report, as well as the new dates for the voter registration will be announced in due course. In the meantime, the Commission reminds all eligible voters that the online registration facility launched recently will continue to provide a safe, convenient and easy way to register as a voter and to update registration details.
A breakdown of the deadlines from former President Kgalema Motlanthe as to how they plan to go about this. The ANC, in essence, is saying that they're continuing as if the elections are taking place on the 27th of October, whilst at the same time, of course, then joining the IEC's application to the Constitutional Court to have the local government elections delayed. They're saying, actually, that even in their papers, they would have preferred to have the elections in April to ensure that they're free and fair, because they would like, firstly, the communities to really be able to engage with the candidates that they put forward, but also because all political parties would need enough time to campaign, to take the election manifestos to the ground. And so they're saying that they agree with the recommendations of the Moseneke outcomes. Let's listen to what Jessie Duarte had to say.
We are planning right now as if the elections will take place on the 27th of October. It is very tight. Our major concern is that an election must be free and fair, and that political parties must have an ability to properly explain their manifestos to the electorate and present their candidates in a well-organized manner. 80% of our branches have elected their candidates, but have not concluded the community meetings where the candidates are presented and where the communities can participate in the selection of an ANC person who will represent them as a candidate in the local government election.
On the understanding that the proclaimed date for local government elections is the 27th of October, and that therefore, working backwards, we've got to register all of our candidates by the 23rd of August. And so, once again, working backwards, all branches were given the deadline of the 4th of August, which is yesterday already, and in other words, to complete their processes. And that by the 9th of August, they should have also completed the community meetings. Following that, in each province, there will be an extended provincial executive committee meeting, which would look at the outcomes of these processes. And by the 14th, all provincial executive committees are expected to have completed this work, which would then culminate in an extended National Executive Committee meeting.
We wait to see what the Constitutional Court will decide on the October elections. A media mogul, an outstanding actor, a father, and a loving husband, Shona Ferguson was laid to rest on Wednesday in a somber ceremony attended by close friends and family. A moving tribute by his wife of 20 years, Connie Ferguson, coming up next. Stay tuned. You're still watching Your Week in 60 Minutes. The late Shona Ferguson passed on last week after battling COVID-19. He was laid to rest on Wednesday.
My love, my skat, pie, shebang, strawberry, Naraiti. Never in a million years would I have thought I'd be in this position that I am today. Speaking as I am today, without your physical presence. Sure, I thought you and I were going to grow old together. That's what I saw. That's what I saw for myself. That's what I saw for us. That's always been the dream. That's always been where I thought you and I were going. I never anticipated where we are today. God brought you into my life 20 years ago. 31st of July would have been exactly, or was actually exactly 20 years that you and I knew each other. And I anticipated another 20 years with you. I really thought you and I were going to go all together. I remember I was going to go Kresta. We would look at them and go, look at us in a couple of years. And then we would hold hands, if we weren't holding hands already. I nursed you for 4 weeks, 28 days to be specific. I have never known anyone as strong as you, Shaw. How I saw you at the hospital, how you fought. Scott, I want you to know that I am so proud of you. Never known anyone with your fighting spirit. Even on that hospital bed, Scott, you defied the odds so many times. So many times. I'm hurting right now. My heart is bleeding. I wasn't ready for you to go. The girls were not ready for you to go. When you became sick, I mean, we've always been a praying family, but I don't think we've ever prayed so much in our lives. We prayed and believed God for your healing. Every time we went to see you, we would pray with you, for you when you couldn't pray. Play worship, praise and worship songs. And just believed God for your healing. I think I'm beginning to understand that God heals differently. He may not always heal the way that we think, or the way that our mortal beings understand. I can't imagine my life without you, Sean. The past couple of days have been almost like a dream, really. I still feel like I'm dreaming sometimes. And that I'd wake up and none of this would be real. And it'd all just be a bad dream. One thing I do know for sure, my love, is that you're walking with the Lord. And that you have been preparing for this day all your life. All your life. Because everything that you did, Miss God, you did with a passion. Never known anyone as resilient as you. You have taught me so much, my love. You've taught me so much. You've taught me unconditional love. You've taught me to never just go 1 foot in. You both fit in or you're not in at all. You were not one for half measures at all. So anyone who's ever known you will know that my husband loved hard. He loved hard. He cared hard. He worked hard. Most importantly, he loved the Lord hard. Unashamedly. Unashamedly. It didn't matter who said what about you and your beliefs and your love for God and the Lord. You loved him anyway. Maybe here's what you did for me and a lot of people that you may not have known while you were still alive. You've touched a lot of lives. You've touched a lot of lives, Shaw. You've taught people how to love. Black families. You've changed the narrative, Shaw. You've changed the narrative. And I couldn't be more proud. More proud. And more blessed to have been your wife, to be your wife. God loved me so much. I may only have had 20 years with you, Shona. But our 20 years, what you and I have had in 20 years, most people never get to experience a smidgen of that in their lifetime. How lucky am I? How lucky am I? You loved me in a way that I didn't even know was possible to love. You had the God kind of love. The God kind of love. We say God is love, but we never allow ourselves to truly just love and be. And you did that for me, for our children, for our family. And I'm realizing that for the community, for the whole nation, for anyone who knew you, I realized that this is going to be a journey for me. That may be my journey is slightly different to what I had envisioned. That God's plan is not necessarily my plan, and I have to trust Him. I have to continue trusting Him. God is still God. God is still God. And although I'm confused right now, I don't know what tomorrow looks like for me without you, because I just cannot imagine myself without you. I have to trust. I have to trust that God sees my pain and our children's pain. What I do know is that I'm happy to have you as an angel, because I know that with God on my side, with Jesus on my side, and with you walking with Jesus, I have all I need to be okay eventually. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the day after. But I know God loves me. God loved me enough to give me you for 20 years. God loves me. God loves our children. You'll be so proud of them. To see their strength, yes, they hurt, they've lost their dad. But the way they've been strong, and the way they believe, their faith, sure, that's everything that you taught us. That's everything that you taught us, my love. So even though your race on earth may have come to an end, you ran a good race, you fought a good fight. And this is a relay, I guess. I have to find it in me to continue. So I believe we continue to live on in our hearts. I have to find it in me to continue. Until I'm ready to join you. So this is not goodbye, my love. Because love, like what you and I have, does not die. It does not die. The mortal body rests. But you continue on in my heart, in our children's hearts, in the hearts of those who loved and cared for you. Thank you. Thank you, Sean, for everything. I love you, my baby. I will always love you. And this is not goodbye. This is till we meet again. When God thinks it's time. Until later, my love. Sleep now.
Well, on that emotional note, we conclude this week's episode of Your Week in 60 Minutes. Thank you for staying with us. Stay tuned to Newzroom Afrika. Our news, our views.